just realized this. We are like 3 days away from the start of the SEC football season, and we have yet to talk about the best games in 2024. Like, maybe not the ones that are going to have the biggest implications on the college football playoff, but just like the best games for us to enjoy on a Saturday when our team isn't playing. And so let's go ahead and discuss it. What's going on, SEC Unfiltered? It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification down below, and of course, hit subscribe because this is your new home for SEC coverage. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. If you don't like this top 10 list, well, you can go ahead and yell at me on Twitter at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with the #1 source for all things SEC, make sure you visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by RHOBACK. Use promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall on game days with RHOBACK. Promo code SECU. Now, we can all agree. The SEC is the best conference in the sport. We live, breathe, and we do things differently down here. But there are some really good games in other conferences. Look at the Big Ten. You got a matchup between Ohio State and Oregon. Who would have thought that would have been a conference game a few years ago? How about in the ACC? Miami versus Virginia Tech. Very much slept on. Maybe you can even talk about other games like Tennessee versus NC State. Really solid performances. But they're not going to carry the same weight that some of these SEC games are. So I got 10 written down. Let's go ahead and break it. Honorable mentions, South Carolina and Kentucky. To me, this is a fork road game. It's going to set the standard. Both of you should win your first matchup against Southern Miss and Old Dominion. Now, the question is, what goes into the game after this game? You go and start off 2-0. One of you goes and plays LSU. The other one plays Georgia. What if that carries the momentum and truly is now the backbone for what could be a memorable season in Lexington or in Columbia? Missouri, Oklahoma. First time we've seen this game back since the days of the Big 12. One side feels like that they are built to win this year. Another one thinks that they are not rivals whatsoever. And honestly, I just want this game back because I see the animosity on Twitter. I'm tired of seeing the Twitter wars be going on. No, I'm done with the finger type. Let's see it on the football field. Have bragging rights for the next year. Go battle. And honestly, these are two teams that I think at the right time in the season could be hitting their stride. Maybe even be pushing for a college football playoff or even an SEC title appearance. I also got Tennessee versus Florida. Here's the deal. You got to win if you're Tennessee. You cannot go to Neyland Stadium, feel confident about your roster, feel like that you are a college football playoff team, and still lose to Florida. That has been your kryptonite. That remains your biggest weakness. You got to be able to get over the hump with that game. If you do so, Nico Iamaleava balls out. You got a great performance from the secondary. You look like a team that is meant to go deep into the postseason. Definitely one that could easily punch their ticket to a college football playoff and be the last face that you want to go up against on a Saturday en route to going to the semifinals. Number 10, I think this is a sleeper game. It's Missouri, Alabama. Let me explain. We don't know what the future holds for either of these programs. You wake up one morning and you say, okay, well, Alabama feels right back. They got the right coach. They got the right personnel, young wide receivers that are about ready to break out, a solid defense. We went out in the transfer portal, got guys that we believe in. We're just getting started. Kalen DeBoer walks on in and says, yeah, I'm going to change some things up, but I'm going to bring us to new heights. We're not closing the book on the Alabama dynasty. We're just turning the page to the next chapter. And it's going to be a pretty long one and probably a pretty promising one. But Missouri also feels like a team that's turning the corner at the right time. Look at what they've done this offseason, adding in pieces in the portal. They got guys like Corey Flack. They got guys like Caden Green, Marcus Bryant, Nate Noel. You get also Marcus Carroll to come on in. That's a 1-2 combination that could make up for the production lost by Cody Schrader. You still have a great wide receiver core. You're recruiting at a better level than ever. Eli Drinkwitz is putting his money where his mouth is. The NIL collective is booming. And what if that's the marquee win? Because if you're 10-2, you can't promise that you're in the college football playoff if you're Missouri. You would like to believe so, but if there's a ton of 10-2 teams in the SEC and only 4 get in, who are your losses to? Who are your wins against? That's really important. You get a monumental victory in Bryant-Denny Stadium against Alabama, who's going to be right there. They're not going away quietly. They're going to be a team that we talk about in a monumental light down the road. You get that win? Well, what's that do for you? What does that mean about your future? Does that not guarantee you a 10-2 a spot in the playoff? And does this do wonders for Luther Burden, Brady Cook? What about Heisman odds? Definitely need to be talking about it. Whether or not you care to agree, it's going to be a big deal. Number 9, how about Auburn versus Oklahoma? I know a lot of you guys say, well, why is this game on this? There's so many other better matchups. you do realize that this is the first test for Jackson Arnold in the SEC away from Norman. That's a big deal. You also realize this is the last test for Auburn before they go on the road for a month. You got to remember, they got dripped with the schedule from hell when it comes to logistics. 5 straight home games, not home for an entire month, then come back, then back on the road. So this is the final test for all these young freshmen. The one thing that you can appreciate if you are on the Plains is that this is a guy that immediately is going to hit because if he gets to play in his own backyard. Cam Coleman, by this point, should be one of the most established receivers that we are talking about in a prominent light. But what if Oklahoma at this point has come off of a monumental victory against Tennessee? They're owning themselves. They feel confident in the offensive line. You know what that defensive front is. You know what they got at the linebacking core. You know what the secondary can do. And you go march into Jordan-Hare Stadium, which is probably one of the more hostile environments of college football, and you walk out with a dub. Well, that's going to carry a lot of weight. And what if you're undefeated going into Red River? I mean, honestly, it's possible. Don't knock it until you try it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying it has to be on the radar. Number 8, Alabama, LSU. Let me explain. Alabama, again, you'll know what you are at this point in the season. You'll know what you will be. You know what you can be. And you know what is in front of you. You know how the season's going to end. LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. What if you can't lose a game? What if you can't lose a game to guarantee your spot in the postseason? And what if you're LSU? You know who you are at this point. Harold Perkins just got named number 7. What if he is just balling out? You go ahead and get Blake Baker to come on in. Immediately, those two are speaking the same language. They're killing it down the bayou. Secondary is playing lights out. Pass rush is phenomenal. And you're able to pressure Jalen Milroe into making mistakes. Similar to what you saw last season when they went to Bryant-Denny Stadium and they struggled at times with Jaden Daniels before they had to turn to Garrett Nussmeier. What if it's that version? And don't think for one second that LSU can't beat Bama, especially in a night game in the most hostile environment in all of college football. Are you kidding me? They did it 2 years ago with Brian Kelly. He was aggressive and went for it in overtime, and he got the win. And honestly, that was the starting point for Jaden Daniels' Heisman case. What if it's the starting point for Garrett Nussmeier's Heisman case? What if it's the starting point for Jalen Milroe's Heisman case? Either way, this has always been one of the best matchups in college football every single year. It doesn't matter what these two records are. They play up to the standard. They always deliver. And again, it's a night game inside a Tiger Stadium. Death Valley, yeah, dreams go to die there. Does Alabama's dynasty dreams die for 2024? Or does potentially LSU's playoff hope dreams dwindle away in the process? Number 7, I'm going to go with third Saturday in October. Kind of similar. New era. It's no longer Nick Saban. You guys realize that Saban lost one time in that rivalry. There are people out there that don't understand that at one point, this was one of the biggest rivalries in college football because of the way that they played against each other. It was a very even kill matchup. And then Tennessee took a lot of games ahead. And then Alabama took a lot of games ahead. And then Tennessee with Philip Fulmer was starting to win a lot. And then comes Nick Saban. And out goes third Saturday in October. And you watch as Derek Dooley leaves, and Lane Kiffin leaves, and Butch Jones leaves, and Jeremy Pruitt leaves. And then you get hype when you get a win in 2022. And it was an awesome environment. Even if you are an Alabama fan, you have to appreciate what you saw that day just because of that is pure college football. Those fans have never left Knoxville. They are a proud tribe up in Neyland Stadium. And they rushed the field, and it was a cascade of the orange and the white. And the podium came, the field goal post came down. It was floating in the river, and it was a movie. Well, you have a quarterback that might be better than the one that beat Bama last year. You also have a very susceptible Alabama team that you don't know if they're going to be up to speed on defense. There are some question marks there. And if you're Alabama, it's the exact same thing because of the one question mark you have if you're Tennessee is your secondary. You like pass rush, arguably the best defensive line in college football for my money. Arguably one of the more underappreciated linebacker rooms in the country. One of the more underappreciated running back rooms in the country. But you do have a question when it comes to your secondary. What if that's the reason why you're unable to find your way into the postseason picture? Either side, again, third Saturday in October, smoke them stogies while you got them, but somebody is going to be, I think, setting a new standard. Is it Alabama still owning Tennessee, or is it Tennessee taking back the third Saturday in October? Number 6, this one's interesting because I initially had it at number 4, but I felt like I had to move it down. I'm going to go with LSU Ole Miss. And the reason why is because of this is the final test. Or I guess really the first test, if I'm being completely honest. Let's go back and restart this. This will be the first test for Ole Miss. Ole Miss did everything possible to get better in the offseason. Transfer portal, recruiting, kept everybody. Last dance mantra. Jackson Dart feeling like a Heisman Trophy candidate. He's slinging it around. I'm calling him Dartnado because I think he's going to deliver. They got awesome talent when it comes to the running back room. Yeah, no more Quinshon Junkins. It's okay. You added in quantity over quality. You'll get the same production. Juice Walls comes on in. What if he is better than what you had in Dayton Wade last year? And then you're throwing him into the mix with a healthy Caden Prieskorn and a Jordan Watkins. And you got that. I mean, we're talking about an offense that's going to score 40-plus every single game. We're talking about a team that now has defensive depth that should be able to hold their own against anybody in the SEC, which is a big reason why we are all believing that Ole Miss should be in the running to make it to Atlanta for the first time. But there is a caveat. LSU is going to have a bye before this game, and it's going to be probably a night game. So you add that into the mix. LSU, well-rested, playing in front of their home fans in a hostile environment, arguably the most ravenous fan base in all of college football, in a place where dreams are desolately destroyed. What if that is the game where LSU finally turns the corner? And now we're talking about LSU with their defense. Okay, they made the adjustments. Now let's see if they can do it, Brian Kelly. You told us to judge you in year 3. Is this the year that we get to judge you? And what if Jackson Dart balls out? What if it's similar to what we saw last season in Oxford, where they're back and forth, taking blows, but instead you're getting better defensive play than you ever had from the Rebels? And Jackson Dart still throws for 300 and gets 3 touchdowns. What are we talking about? Favorite to win the Heisman at that point? I would say so. Definitely not going to be a shortcoming. That's for darn sure when we break that all down. Number 5. Interestingly enough, I want to put this a little higher, but there's one game that I can't. So I got to go with Georgia Ole Miss. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. You know what Georgia is. You think you know what you think you know what Ole Miss is. But you remember that game last year where it felt like for probably 10 minutes, Ole Miss had something. Ole Miss's offense was starting to hum a little bit. They gained a little bit of momentum on the ground. They were slicing and dicing. Jackson Dart looked good. He kept things close. And then came the second quarter. And then came the beatdown of a lifetime. And everyone said, all right, yep, there is a clear separation between these two squads. And what happened after that game? Lane Kiffin said, if we want to compete for national titles, if we want to compete alongside the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world, we got to get better in the trenches. Done. Got better when it comes to the offensive line. Got better when it comes to defensive line depth. Princely and Manley Yellen comes on in. You don't lose J.J. Pegas. You don't lose Jared Ivey. You go get Walter Nolan, one of the best premier defensive players in the country last year, and still growing into a what could be dominant defensive tackle at Ole Miss. And you get better at linebacker. And you get better in the secondary. But more importantly, you get the right depth for your squad to where you have no doubts. If somebody goes down, you're not fumbling and wondering who's going to step up in his place. That is why you can believe in Ole Miss this year. Georgia's still Georgia. Honestly, they hit the jackpot this offseason. Didn't lose Carson Beck. Upgrade at running back with Trevor Etienne. Feel really good about their wide receiver room. Unproven, but still very much high potential from Dominic Lovett to Oscar Delp to Dylan Bell. You like the team and what direction they're going in. And they still got a stellar defense. They still have arguably one of the best front sevens in college football. They got one of the best coordinators when it comes to Glenn Schumann working alongside Kirby Smart. Those two speak the same language. They're on the same wavelength. They got things done. They know how to make it work. And they just show you, oh yeah, Ole Miss, congratulations. You got better. So did we. Best of luck to you when we see you again in the playoff. That's honestly the way I feel about it. Number 4. You guys are going to hate this one. I don't really care. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I know what the atmosphere is like. I know what game day is. It's Red River. And honestly, the reason why is because if Red River belongs in the SEC, and people need to start agreeing with it. People need to start realizing that Red River, as one of the pioneer rivalries in college football, that's why you go add in Oklahoma and Texas. But they don't fit geologically. They're not geographically located with us. They only play in the Big 12. They're not built for SEC country. Yeah, but that game is going to be premier. I can tell you what. There are hostile fan bases. There are ravenous environments. And then there is Red River. There is nothing like it in college football. The closest thing that I can tell you is probably the game. And it's because of the way that the stadium is built. And I'm not a fan of neutral site games. I never have been. I think it's egregious to have mainstay matchups like Florida and Georgia and Jacksonville. Do you know what the atmosphere would be like when you're playing in the Swamp or you're playing in Athens? But this is the one case. It is the one case where I'm 100% on board. No questions asked. Give me this game. Quinn Ewers balls out. You go ahead and see Jackson Arnold finally hit his stride. What if it's a Caleb Williams 2.0 kind of moment? And for 30 minutes, you are playing in front of the enemy. Either side. That's always the way it's been. It's split right down the middle, and you feel the tension. You can cut it with the smallest string, and you will feel it unravel the second one play happens. That is what you get in these type of games. And it's why I want it in the SEC. And it's why I want this game to be one of the best this year, because if it delivers, nobody is going to question that Texas and Oklahoma belong in the SEC, because we talk about environments with the Iron Bowl. We talk about environments with Third Saturday, world's largest outdoor cocktail party, oldest rivalry in the South. This is right up there. It's not going to play second fiddle. You may think as an SEC purist that they're going to have to earn their stripes. And you're right, they won't. But this rivalry is moving right up the pecking order. It is going to be one of the best in college football for the second it arrives. Number 3, Lone Star Showdown. And this one's just a personal one for me. I grew up in the state of Texas. I spent Thanksgiving night not paying attention to the NFL. I was never involved in NFL matchups. I was always paying attention to what was going on in Austin, what was going on in College Station. We made several trips up there when I was a little kid to Austin, had a barbecue inside the parking lot before watching the game on the television. Went to friends' house all the time. And you grew up in the state, you grew up with one thing. You were told it's either hook 'em or gig 'em. You were born with maroon and white, or you were born with burnt orange and white. That was the case. That was always the case. And so now we get it back. And what if this does have college football playoff implications on multiple standards? What if Texas has 2 losses already going into this game? Let's say it's to, I don't know, Kentucky and Georgia. They can't lose a third to guarantee their spot in the playoff. 9-3 is not going to qualify you this year. My personal belief. Even with a daunting schedule, it is challenging enough to say that a 9-3 team's getting in. And what if Texas A&M is sitting there at 9-2? Well, now we got to see this game, because if they are now impressing and their 2 losses are to games that you expect them to lose to, like an LSU, like a Missouri, or like a Notre Dame for that instance, could we see the Mike Elko era be the anchor that now brings Kyle Field to its feet? We finally get the Maroon Goons. We get the Wrecking Crew defense. We get everything that we once saw underneath R.C. Slocum back on our television screens. Oh, and also, this is a great matchup, and it's at Kyle Field, and that place is humming when they play Appalachian State. That place is humming when they play New Mexico. This is the first time in 12 years that we're going to get the Lone Star Showdown back in our seats. Sign me up, 100%. That's immediately moving to the top of the list. Number 2, Alabama, Georgia. Is it the changing of the tides? Is it what would be the best way to put this? I'm not really good when it comes to history, when it comes to this. Is it the anointing of a new era of SEC football? Because we already know this. Yes, Kirby beat Nick Saban. Kirby beat Nick. It happened. They won a national title, first in over 4 decades in Athens, a program that's always been stable, but they never were able to get over the hump. But Nick got the last laugh, and he got it more times than not. Well, Nick's not there anymore, and Georgia's built to win. And Georgia has been building alongside Alabama when it comes to recruiting. They've been building when it comes to the transfer portal. They've been building when it comes to first-round draft picks. Their success story has always been there. They just need the right guy at the helm. And lo and behold, a Saban disciple who played underneath the Bulldogs back in the 80s comes on back. Look at that. Immediately, 10-win season, college football playoff appearances, now national champion. The favorites to win the national championship. But it's still Alabama. So is it still Alabama? Is it still Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard slicing and dicing up secondary members of the Bulldogs? Is it still LT Overton coming on in and being a wrecking crew on the defensive line? Is it still Jalen Milroe getting the better version of Carson Beck? Because if so, absolutely, you can tell me that I'm lying, but you know I'm not. This is going to be a game that will have massive implications on the future of the SEC. It always has. Happened with LSU once, happened with Georgia once, happened with Alabama. It's just the turning of the tides, another matchup. But for me, number 1 is Texas versus Georgia. And the main reason why is because this is a statement game for Texas. Georgia's arrived. We already know what Georgia's going to be for the next 15 years, as long as Kirby is running the show in Athens. We know that Georgia is going to be a premier program, number 1 in the rankings, number 1 in recruiting, number 1 in transfer portal. Everything about them is second to none. They will always have the talent. But Texas, they got to show up. This is their first marquee moment to actually prove that they belong. They've been building for it. Look at their offensive line. That is not a Big 12 line. That is an SEC proven hostile line that is going to deliver dominance if given the opportunity to. Look at their wide receiver core. It may not be as polished as Adonai Mitchell, as Xavier Worthy, as Tavian Sanders, but nobody is slouching at playing Silas Bolden, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond, Jonte Let Him Cook, Ryan Wingo, Amari Nyblack, and still a good pass-catching backfield. What if Quinn Ewers and Carson Becker playing for the Heisman in this game? What if that's what it is? And here's the best part for Texas. It's in their own backyard. And so there's all these people saying, oh, we don't believe that Texas belongs in the SEC. They're going to have to earn their stripes. Do you want to know the best way to push yourself up the pecking order? Get a win against a two-time national champion and a team that's favored to go back to the title game this year. You get that win, nobody is doubting you. And at this point, you can say, Texas is BAC. Are we okay with using that letter? You get a win there. How do you not say Texas is back? Because clearly that will be the win that pedestals them into the conference championship. That'll be a win that prevails them to go to Atlanta. It's going to be one that we talk about for the long term in the future of college football. But that's my top 10 teams. Let me know in the comment section down below. Who did you think was the worst of the matchups? Who did I not mention? Who is somebody that I need to mention next time? Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. And to keep up with the number one source for all things SEC, make sure you visit SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.